part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
That sound means it's time for Cavs of the Break NBA podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Chase Smith, and with me, he's the NBA writer for HoopsWire.com. He's our Cavs insider, national NBA writer, Sam Amico. Sam, it is nice to talk to you, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I've enjoyed some summer break and just ready, almost ready for the season again.
Yes, Sam, we are joined by two other legends. We're one starter short of a starting five. Jeremy couldn't make it tonight. But joining us, he's a co-host of Cavs on the Break. He hosts one of the co-hosts of Sable Brothers on the Baseline. He is one of the sports anchors at Fox 8. Ladies and gentlemen, John Sable. John, what's up, man?
Chase, how's it going, buddy? Good to be on here talking hoops with you, Taylor, and Sam.
Oh yeah, a little spoiler alert there. And our other legend joining us, he's the host of the Full 40 College Basketball Podcast right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. He's our college basketball expert. He's currently in Vegas at the Summer League games, and he's taking time out of the strip to talk to us. Taylor Vanderbilt. Taylor, what's up, man? How you doing?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. I love talking basketball. So, I'm watching basketball every day. So why not talk about it?
We are missing Jeremy on the starting five, and shouts to Zach for checking this podcast out. Appreciate you, Zach. So, hey, here, we're going to talk about a couple of things here. I want to hit on the Cavs draft recap because we haven't touched on the draft. And then I want to touch on free agency. The Cavs made just a few moves that I think have some impact moving forward, and then just touch on Summer League, give Taylor some time to talk, and maybe we touch on Summer League a little bit early. Maybe Taylor's with us in the first half of the show before the break. Well, hey, but let's talk about the draft because I personally love what the Cavs did in the draft last month. The Cavs, Sam, you want to kind of just fill us in on what the Cavs did? I love who they drafted. I absolutely love who they got. Sam, what did the Cavs do here at 14?
Well, obviously, he's a player who is, a four-year college player, which in the NBA draft anymore is kind of a rarity. But with the Cavs wanting to make a playoff push, going with an older guy, 6'5", who can shoot. I've heard some comparisons to a young Danny Green. If you remember when Danny Green was with the Spurs, he was a pretty good player. And if you can get that kind of guy on a team that already has people like Darius Garland and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley and Markkanen, those young guys, and can develop around that core. I thought it was a real nice pick. There are a lot of people throughout the league that I've talked to who really like the pick. A lot of people kind of thought he might go sooner. And of course, as I just said, the one thing that kind of hurt him was that he's an older player, so a lot of people say, well, if that's the case, he's 22 years old, maybe he's already hit his upside, which is his ceiling, which is really not true. We've seen throughout history that's not always the case. So, theoretically, you got somebody who can help you take that next step, and he can help you immediately, and he presumably fills a need, and that's perimeter shooting. So consistent perimeter shooting.
At 14, the Cavs drafted national champion from Kansas Jayhawks, Ochai Agbaji, 6'5", swingman, as Sam was saying, 3-and-D wing, 215 strong frame, can guard multiple positions, giving him the versatility to guard a lot of positions here, John. And very smart, high basketball IQ. He attended the 2021 Combine, but returned to Kansas, won a national championship. John, before we turn to Taylor's expertise here about what we got here, what are your takeaways on the Cavs draft? First round.
Yeah, I really liked it. I was, and if we look back at our last episode, we gave our predictions of where we thought they could go. I don't think any of us actually picked Agbaji. Granted, at our last show was a few days before a lot of the mocks changed and a lot of intel changed as well. We had either Malachi Branham or Tari Eason, I think, Sam, you and I, and I think Jeremy as well. That being said, I liked as the draft process kept going on the last few days and reading mocks and talking with Sam and, reading Hoops Wire and, going and just doing our own research after our show, you saw how a lot of the boards changed. And so I thought it was, to me, I narrowed it down. I took Tari Eason off my list and I got down to Malachi Branham and Ochai Agbaji. I think long-term, I think Malachi Branham may have a higher ceiling long-term, but to Sam's point and what the Cavs like, they like Agbaji's plug and play now, being an older player, mature physically, mature game more so, and not really a project as maybe Branham could be. So he's a guy that is a proven winner. He can shoot. He's a 3-and-D guy. You just said that's what attracted them in his workout. When I talked with Kobe Altman of the night of the draft, they were impressed with his workout there at the facility, about a week before the draft. And his shooting was lights out, and that's what they loved about him. I think he fits well with them. There's going to be, I think, some growing pains with any young player. Is he going to be a guy that can have immediate impact or off the bench? We'll see. But you're picking in the middle teens at that point in time. You're not going to get somebody. More than likely, you're not always going to get somebody that can make a big impact in the starting lineup. And he's not going to be that guy. He doesn't need to be that guy. He'll be the 7th or 8th guy in that rotation. And I think it's a good fit. I think in talking with the young man, I mean, he is mature beyond his years. And I think that was also a big attraction to Kobe Altman and the crew.
So what I love about having Taylor with us, guys, is he's not a Cavs fan per se. He just loves college basketball. He's a Duke fan. And Taylor knows what he's talking about. So Taylor, in your objective opinion, tell us who the Cavs drafted at 14 here and how he's going to fit in with their team, my man.
So I actually love the pick. I love Agbaji. Me personally, I'm not, I don't subscribe to the NBA scout thought process of older guys are, worse, because to me, like, that's kind of why I love him. He's polished. And that's kind of, I was on the fence as well. I think with Malachi Branham, I really liked him for you guys, being an Ohio guy, Ohio State, all that kind of stuff. I thought it fit. Just thought it made sense. Gives you great, he would have gave you great scoring, which is kind of something you lack. The Cavs are lacking in wing scoring. But I love the pick in Agbaji because he's mature. So he can come straight in, play. He can give you if you guys like a Desmond Bain type feel, he's not, obviously, I don't think he'll be, the fill it up scorer that he is, but he's a 3-and-D guy he has some lapses off ball sometimes, but pretty much he's a solid defender and he can score. He can get you buckets. So for example, Isaac Okoro to me is the guy I feel like he would be replacing a little bit because in the lineup, because he can give you that offensive threat that Isaac can't. So I love the pick at 14. Like I said, Malachi Branham was the only other guy that I was kind of throwing around in my head. But I love it.
I love the pick as well. I love the pick that he's the type of player who's going to come into the team and not disrupt the locker room, right? Like he's going to know his role and accept that. I get huge, Mikal Bridges from Villanova to the Suns, right? Comes from a strong program. And I know they're Bridges I think he's a little taller, but just that kind of like proven winner, someone who the kind of player you're going to get. And I love how the Cavs released footage from their war room. Everyone was pumped that they got, it seemed like their guy, there was almost there was no one else that they were trying to get. Sam, is that kind of ring true to what you were hearing, that this is the person that they targeted at 14?
He was the guy at the top of their board.
Remarkable.
When you're a GM and you're going into the draft and you have a board of 1 through 100, and whoever is at the top of your board is who you're taking. And he was there. So at that point on draft night, there's no.
ladies and gentlemen, Sam is in the middle of driving through the middle of nowhere in West Virginia. And so he is in and out of service, which is unfortunate because that was life-changing. It really was the key to the whole Cavs offseason, and you guys
I think
just missed it.
I passed a policeman and he had me on radar. So that really messed me up. But what I'm saying is he was the guy at the top of their draft board. They may have had him higher than 14. So that's probably why they were so fired up. They may have had him at 9 or 10 on their board, and they got. So, yeah, there's plenty of reason for them to be excited. Obviously, that's the guy that they wanted at that spot, and they thought they got him in a great spot. Now, that said, if he's any good, we all know there's going to have to be some changes because you can't have, if Colin Sexton comes back, you can't have Sexton, Abaji, Okoro, and Karis LeVert. Somebody's going to be either traded or benched. You can't play all those guys. Plus, you got Chetty as well.
Listen, I feel like Sexton and LeVert's going to get their own special Cavs on the Break episode here. I don't know when, but
I don't know when either. And it's funny because, you mentioned the whole Isaac Okoro and Colin Sexton dilemma here. Who knows where that's going to go? I think we all kind of a consensus here may think that he's going to come back at some point, but if he does, we still have an issue with Okoro in that rotation. And, Sam, Chase is the president and CEO of the Isaac Okoro fan club.
I am. Yeah, I'm there.
So
we're taking new people. We're taking new members. I'm passing around a clipboard.
I would hate to see what happens to Chase.
Is diminishing.
Yes.
Right. I'm now the president, vice president, and treasurer, actually.
Yeah.
So.
And janitor. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yes. So, Taylor, why did Baji, why did he drop to 14?
I really just think it was just a very simple. He was older. If you look at the guys who were kind of picked ahead of him, and let me get the draft board here, but the guys that are picked ahead of him, you really were pretty much like the Paulo Bancheros of the world, Chets. So all that potential. Obviously, we know that those guys are really, really talented, but pretty much those potential guys. So that's why I think he dropped. But I think since he had such a good year, he was basically a standout at Kansas the past 2 years. But this year, he really, asserted his dominance and made sure the best player on the best team in college basketball, if you will. So I think that those accolades, having a solid tournament like he did, all kind of added up to him dropping, but not necessarily dropping the late first round or anything like that. So, but that's why I think he dropped, just the NBA bias against older guys. Like I said, if you look at everyone who was taken before him, I think the oldest guy in that group was Keegan Murray, and he was a 3-year guy at Iowa. Yeah. So, and he was a real national player of the year, standout. I mean, you couldn't, anytime you watch him, obviously you see what he's doing now with the Kings. So I think that's just why. So,
all right. So Taylor's room is like flashing all these awesome multicolored lights. And so we're going to keep Taylor for about 5 or 10 more minutes. Taylor, the rest of our draft, the Cavs drafted a couple draft and stash players. We had a center from on the Spanish League, Senegal, Khalifi Diop, and then in the second round and then third round, we got Luke Travers, an Australian wing player, another draft and stash people. But the other player that we probably will see at least in training camp, I don't know if he'll make the team, but the Cavs did draft Evan Mobley's brother, Isaiah Mobley, forward center from USC. Taylor, what can we expect with that 49th pick and Isaiah Mobley there?
I think he's a great player, and that's relative. I obviously NBA standards, I don't necessarily see him on this team. I just don't see it. When you have marketing, Jared Allen, and his brother, yeah. When you have all those guys, it's like where would he fit in? So I don't necessarily see him on this team. But what I do think about him, he's a great player at USC. I think he averaged 14 and 8 this past season. He's sort of like his brother in that he can handle the ball a little bit. He can shoot it a little bit. So to me, he's like they're the same player. Evan's just way better, if that makes sense. Same kind of player to me, same kind of build, if you will. Evan's just way better. And that's kind of what I've always kind of thought since I saw them when they were in high school. Even though they were both McDonald's All-Americans and that kind of deal. So,
John, you have a brother. You host a podcast with him.
Sure do.
Do you like this brother to brother pick here for the Cavs? Was it more for Evan, or what? Did they really see like a player they like in there?
But it sounds like they see some potential there. I mean, they're not just going to waste a pick, I think, on just to waste a pick. However, that was 49th, overall in the second round, and a lot of these second round players don't really contribute much, if at all. I mean, these are stash players that he'll be in the probably the G League there with the Cleveland Charge, and he's very raw. And Taylor brought up a good point. I mean, I don't see how he fits in this current roster. However, the only way I think that he can fit on this roster is maybe not this year, or as a potential insurance to injuries, and maybe going forward down the road as maybe a heir apparent to a Markkanen or Kevin Love if they're both gone, after next year, mid-season. If the Cavs, trade Kevin Love, that'll open up a roster spot. So it's a good risk at that point, at that particular number, and having a brother on that team there, it's a kind of a cool storyline. They did scout Mobley. They obviously scouted Evan before last year's draft, so they knew a lot about Isaiah. I think the issues, and I know we'll get into it, are with the other two second round picks. And personally, and I said this the night of the draft on Fox 8, and Sam, we were talking about this too. I am shocked that they ended up using all four of those draft picks and not trading them for other future selections or whatever. They tried to get back in the first round, but that didn't happen. You rarely see a team use all those draft picks. But all those guys aren't really going to, contribute all anyways. Luke Travers you'll get into here, and Khalifa Diop as well. But I think there's other positions and other players that could have been available besides those two guys, or at least especially Diop at 39.
John's a professional when he cleans up my mispronunciation names just to make sure we get it right on the pod. I feel like I appreciate the backup and support there, man. I would love a little Mobley brothers on the baseline, maybe a dual pod there, maybe in the future with Sable brothers. Maybe we can talk to our friends in the Cavs organization to get something on the books.
That would be awesome. I'd love to do that. Yeah. Evan, the one thing I do like about both of the brothers, Isaiah and Evan, is they're both mature and soft-spoken guys. They're quiet, but they pretty much, they communicate with their play on the court, and we saw that with Evan last year. So
Sam, one of the things that I thought about looking at this draft and what the Cavs did was it looks like the Cavs don't want to change how they play if Jarrett Allen or Mobley are out or get injured. I feel like they're acquiring pieces that they can keep the style that they like to play with the bigs and the frame of people that they have on their roster. Does that seem like it makes sense to you?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you talk about a guy like obviously Love, who's coming off a really fantastic bounce back season.
Fantastic.
And Dean Wade had a decent year. I mean, obviously those guys aren't going to be, your core, but to your point of they play that same style as Markkanen, Wade can hit outside shots like Markkanen. So yeah, they're building a team like that so that they can protect themselves from injury. The Robin Lopez signing, I think everybody who saw Anderson Varejao will like Robin Lopez, especially when it comes to their hair. But I think also, he plays and brings that kind of energy. Robin Lopez has been a lot of places and has been a fan favorite in all those places because he always plays hard.
Yeah.
He's a nuisance to the opponent. And, I think that the Cavs fans will really learn to like him. So, yeah, I mean, that was a nice pickup. Obviously, they bringing Rubio back.
You're jumping ahead on me, Sam. You're jumping ahead on me. We're touching on free agents after the break here.
Okay, well, if you want to talk strictly the draft, I think we've got one guy who's going to be a contributor, which is really all you want, because frankly, you've got a really young team, so it's going to be hard to kind of crack that nucleus.
All right, so really quick here, Sam, draft grade, what you got? for the Cavs?
Oh, I really liked the pick. I really did. I was a fan. So I mean, at number 14, when you factor in everything, they drafted a guy who theoretically is going to be able to help you right away, whether that's as an 8th or 9th man. Those positions are important. So, yep. And they got him at number 14. So I would give them an A. I really would, because I just think you really had that one pick that you kind of had to hit. I feel like, on paper, they hit that pick.
John, what you got? Draft grade for the Cavs 2022.
Completely agree with Sam. Got to give him an A. Abaji it's the safe pick. It's the right pick. Taylor and I were going back and forth there about Branham, but now that we understand their thought process and what they wanted, it's exactly the guy that fits what they need.
Yeah. And,
second round selections, I don't know how you can really grade second round selections when they don't contribute consistently like that. But I mean, overall, I think it was a really solid draft, but that first pick there in the only first round pick they had there at 14, definitely an A for me.
Taylor, what you got, man, for the Cavs?
So I'm just going to overall draft grade. I would give them probably a B. I like the first round pick for sure, but I do think they could have, since they kept those picks into the second round, I do think that they could have used them a little bit better. But second round picks, as we've said, are second round picks. You don't necessarily look for them to be, Draymond contributors. That's 1 in a million, if you will. So with that being said, I'd say a B. But I would have liked to see them use those picks on some other guys.
Draymond just loved that you saad that. He just he loves that you just said that.
The two best second round picks that I can think of off the top of my head in last 20 years, Draymond and Carlos Boozer, those are the two. And you're not going to get those guys every year. The one thing I will say, if I had to criticize one thing on the draft, the job selection scratched my head when you had EJ Liddell there. And I know, unfortunately, he just tore his ACL in the summer league, which unbelievable, terrible news for him. Granted, he was drafted 2 positions after Jop at 41 and Jop was 39. I would have thought that would have been a great selection there for him to fit in there. But, we'll see what they do.
I was really disappointed that they didn't take Liddell. I was at 39 because I just thought Ohio State got I just don't like the idea.
That police scanner got him again, man. Well, hey, here's my grade, and I know it's going to shock everyone. I'm going to give the Cavs an A+. I love what they did. I'm all on board the hype train. And if this signals the end for a number of players that I've grown to love, whether it's Cedi Osman or my dude Okoro, or if this gives the Cavs more flexibility with Sexton and LeVert, then I'm okay with that. So I give him an A+. And that's that. Taylor, really quick before you head out, we're going to hit you one more thing before we take a break and let you off here. Taylor, like we said, is in Vegas at the Summer League games. Taylor, if you can here in like 2 minutes, tell us about your experience, what you're seeing, and what the buzz is in Vegas now.
Honestly, we were talking about before, this is to me the best sporting event, bang for your buck wise. It's true what they say in the arena. It is literally 1 minute from the Thomas and Mack Center to Cox Pavilion, which are the 2 gyms that kind of do everything. And the cool part about it is it's like a really open concourse, like hallway, so you can walk past and by your favorite influencer, NBA player. You really don't know who's going to show up. Like, I was at the Heat Celtics game the other day, and I see a guy walk in, looks kind of like Jason Tatum. Turns out it was Jason Tatum. Ben Simmons was actually there. Yeah, he was at a basketball court. That actually did happen. Saw it with my own 2 eyes. So, just being able to be around be in that kind of atmosphere, seeing guys like legends like Isaiah Thomas. I talked to Gary Payton, like stuff like that is just, next level, especially for a basketball junkie like myself. But in terms of the games and just the buzz, it's been pretty hype. I went the first night to see Paulo and Jabari play against one another, and Paulo was and I'm not just saying this because I'm a Duke guy, but Paolo looked the part. He looked the part. And then the second game actually really surprised me in the Pistons. And I know he rolled his ankle and they're sitting him down, but Jaden Ivey to me was the most electric player in Summer League. Paolo was, I say, the best overall, but in terms of just who you wanted to go see on a nightly basis, it would have probably been Jaden Ivey if he would have continued to play. But yeah, no, great game, some standouts. I know we talked about Tari Eason earlier. He's looked really good for the Rockets. Chet's looked great. So, just a fun time being able to see these young guys come into the league from college and kind of, start their careers, start to blossom. So yeah, really good show.
The Cavs.
Taylor, I got a quick question for you while we're on that summer league topic, real quick before we let you go. Has there been, and have you seen the Cavs play at all? Have you seen Abaji, and have you talked to people about him? I know he's only played 2 games. The Cavs only had played 2 games so far.
Yeah.
He had 16 points in one game, 8 in the other. Didn't have a good shooting night in one of them. I'm just curious to see if you had a pulse on that side of things there.
So haven't talked to anybody about him, but I was able to catch a little bit of their game. Him and RJ Nembhard obviously stood out in their games, but like I said, I caught a little bit of it, but not enough to make like a consensus of what it would be or what he looked like. But I did see him play. He looked nice. He looked solid. And like I said, RJ Nembhard was to me the guy that like I really noticed, and maybe because he had been there before, he's kind of he's comfortable. So a lot of the other guys I could tell were kind of not shook, but a little tight. It's a job interview. It's the biggest job interview in the world. So it's one of those things. But no, I haven't been able to see him play as much, but from what I've seen, they look pretty good.
The Cavs are 1-1. They played Wednesday today, for listening to us probably today, against the Hornets, Thursday against the young up-and-coming Pistons that Taylor was just raving about. Taylor, thank you so much, man. Enjoy your time in Vegas. Safe travels, and looking forward to hear what you got next on the Cavs on the break here.
Thanks. No problem. Glad to be here. And John, actually, Draymond, we know we were talking about second-round picks. I know it made him feel good, but he's not the best second-round pick probably in the last 10 years. Jokic, the MVP, was actually a second-round pick.
Yes.
I always forget about that.
You're right. I completely forgot. The most obvious one. You're right. Good call.
And also the Knicks' new point guard, Mr. Jalen Brunson, also second-round pick.
Oh, wow.
Are we putting him on that pedestal yet right now? Are we doing it just because he got the bag? We giving him that?
Well, now Draymond's pissed, and we just lost another subscriber, so I don't know.
Well, Jalen Brunson, he's a 4-year guy. So like I said, I always am behind 4-year guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love him as a player. I think he'll blossom in New York.
I hope he does. I like his game. I do.
Yeah, I need something to watch up in my neck of the woods because I don't know what's going on in Brooklyn now. So, but yeah, glad to join you guys. Glad to talk basketball with you.
All right, Taylor. Hey, thanks, man. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, John and Sam are going to help me talk about the free agency acquisitions and signings the Cavs made. And then we're going to talk about, I'm kind of throwing this on Sam here. I don't know if Sam knows, but then we're going to talk about the trade value column or podcast that Bill Simmons and the Ringer just dropped and some really cool surprises with the Cavs. Stick around and we'll be right back.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Mike Voorhees.
And I'm Brian Shaw. No, not the pitcher. We're the Guardians of the Land MLB podcast.
Formerly known as the Swing and a Tribe.
Don't have time to watch 162 games of baseball? We have you covered with recaps, stats, and analysis throughout the MLB season.
Subscribe now to Guardians of the Land MLB podcast and Press Play Podcast Network for all your Cleveland sports analysis.
What's good, everybody? My name is Taylor Vanderbilt, and I'm the host of the 440 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. On the 440, we talk about literally everything college basketball related. It could be women's, it could be men's, it could be recruiting, it could be the tournament. It does not matter. We cover it all. So check it out. Again, it's the 440 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Regai and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary. And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
All right, we are back. I'm back here with John Sable, Sam Amico. Man, Taylor was just dropping all types of nuggets of knowledge. He's incredible. And we're lucky to have him here on Cavs on the Break and on the network. Shouts to Taylor Vanderbilt there, doing great. Hey, I also want to give shouts to the Cavs because they're doing work here this offseason. It's so encouraging to watch a team with a plan and to watch them execute that plan. In regards to free agency, the Cavs have re-signed Darius Garland to the max rookie extension. Man got his bag. We've signed Ricky Rubio to 3-year, $18.4 million. Ricky's everyone was excited about that re-signing, and I think people saw that one coming. Maybe we can touch on that. Robin Lopez, 14-year NBA vet, was with the Magic last year. And then Raul Neto, I'm sure John will correct me on that pronunciation as well. Probably just for roster and other things. But the Cavs have a plan, John, and they are executing that plan. And it all starts with securing Allen and Garland. And now we got Mobley for the next 4 years until we re-sign it. And it is just, we're set, John. We are set.
The core is there, and I think it's Raul Neto.
Neto, there we go. See, I knew you had it.
Sam, is that correct?
I just need to know how to spell it, but yes, I believe that's correct. and I'll tell you what. Go ahead, John, but very underrated signing, in my opinion, that guy.
So it's funny. I had forgotten about him. I'll be honest. I forgot about him when that came down. I'm like, who? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about the player, because I remember when he was playing with Washington and watching some of his game tape. He is a sneaky good guard. Handles the ball fairly well, can distribute well. I thought that was agree with you on that one, Sam. Very under the radar move. It gives them depth, is what it gives them. And you mentioned Chase, the Garland max. Everything that the Cavs wanted to do this offseason, they've done, with the exception of the Colin Sexton situation, which is still in flux. And, we don't know when that's going to be resolved, but, at some point it will. But, I don't think any of us are shocked he hasn't gotten an offer sheet yet from any team. And if we're being honest too, you rarely get players. Sam, you've been covering the NBA forever. You don't get many offer sheets signed for restricted free agents in the league. Maybe one a year, maybe. So, or one a summer, I guess. But they're adding small pieces, Neto, Lopez, giving them some depth in the bigs. And then, of course, Rubio. Now, Rubio probably won't be ready till about January, and no one knows exactly how his ACL will be. But it's a great signing for them if he can even come back at the same level, if not maybe a little below. I think our expectations maybe are too high on him, thinking he's going to be able to bounce back quickly, as he's now on the wrong side of 30. But money-wise, it's a decent deal for them, considering he was asking and looking for way more than that this time last year. Isn't that correct, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, it is good in the sense that, look, we saw Jamal Murray from the Nuggets is the guy I can think of that had the torn ACL, and he missed all of this season, and he tore it at the end of last season. So, yeah, with Rubio, he suffered his injury in late December. He may not be back till early February. But, the big reason that you sign that guy to that kind of deal isn't just because of what he offered on the court, but obviously what he offered in terms of leadership and just really, I mean, Garland and let's just say Sexton is back. Those guys loved having him around. They listened to him. He sort of acted as a coach almost for those young guys. So it was just a great signing in that sense. And like you said, John, he did come back. Last summer he was looking at a much larger deal. The Cavs were going to sign him to an extension in December, so that he didn't hit free agency, and then he suffered the injury, and obviously that changed everything. But if he could come back a quarter of the guy he was at the start, and then the following season come back stronger and offer them more on the court, it was a great signing. I mean, he quickly became not just a fan favorite, but a favorite of his teammates and the coaches and the front office as well.
And he bought into that veteran role along with Kevin Love, the two people in that Cavaliers organization that really helped him fit in and convinced to first off come to Cleveland after being traded here during the Olympics, which we've documented multiple times here on Cavs Break podcast from Sam, that he didn't want to be here. He didn't want to come to Cleveland last summer 2021. But he had talked to Kevin Love about it. Love embraced his role of coming off the bench, as did Rubio. But Jose Calderon, who is a special advisor to the Cavs, is really good friends and close with Ricky Rubio as well. And that played a major role in him staying, convincing to stay, and then eventually re-signing this summer.
You know what I love about this is it creates a positive culture, and it all of a sudden changes the tune of players like, oh, hey, Cleveland's a great place to play because of these things that they do. And there, I'm sure, are other basketball reasons, but you see how they brought on Ricky and Jose Calderon, even drafting Evan Mobley's brother. I feel like that's a lot of goodwill with the players that I think will in turn, players talk. And I don't think that can be understated. I want to read a list here, and because Darius Garland joins a very unique list of the Cavs, and I tweeted this out in our group thread, and it didn't get as much traction as I thought, but it's okay. I only cried to myself to sleep a couple nights, but it's all right. Darius Garland joins lists of players that the Cavs have drafted and then in turn gave a max extension. We got Hot Rod Williams, Brad Daugherty, the Jonas Oglaskas, Tristan Thomas, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, and now Darius Garland.
I remember that text. Yeah, you're right. I completely ignored that. But yeah,
everyone did except for Jeremy, because he corrected me because I left out Hot Rod Williams. That's quite a list.
Yeah. It's an impressive list. It really is.
And I'm sure Evan Mobley here in a couple years, Sam, he's the real deal. Like this is a cornerstone player that the Cavs have drafted, and they drafted two in back-to-back years.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Obviously, Darius Garland represented by Rich Paul, and Rich told me this was in year 2 with Darius Garland. Eventually, putting the ball in his hands is going to change the course of the franchise. And I admittedly kind of said, okay, well, I'm waiting to see that. And last year we saw it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it really did. It changed their trajectory with him kind of having that breakout year, taking a step forward. I just think, and he's not as dynamic, obviously, as a Kyrie Irving. He's not going to change the course of your franchise in the same way that LeBron James is. But as you know, we've seen so often that you have to have a great point guard to go places. And he kind of really, you know, he's on his way to greatness. And
the Cavs are banking on it.
Right. And if he builds off last season, which everybody expects him to do, you know, and that's why I think, you know, not to get off topic, but that's why I think you kind of got to give Okoro this year too, because look at Garland after year two. They were kind of like, what's he going to be? You know, and I think we're asking that about Okoro after year two. So
Sam, you want to join my club?
I talk to me again in like December, and I may come in as the new janitor. But I do think that Garland really showed that Rich Paul last year was correct. Putting the ball in his hands, and they figured out what to do with him in Sexton's absence, and figured out, okay, this is Darius Garland now. Now, how do we fit Colin Sexton back into that? That's going to be kind of their, I don't want to say challenge, but something they got to figure out this season. And assuming Sexton is back, they've got to figure that out. How do you make these guys work? Because when Colin left, he was the face of the franchise. Not through any fault of his own. He's coming back, and guess what? Darius Garland is the face of the franchise. So, and credit to Darius and the Cavs for just sticking with it.
Well, it's funny. This time last year, us three, we were talking about the Cavaliers and projecting what that season would be like. We all thought the Cavs were going to have a horrible year, everyone else did, but we also projected and predicted that Colin Sexton would likely be moved at the deadline because it wouldn't work out with Darius Garland. And thankfully, we all three of us were wrong, because they obviously were a game away from making the playoffs. Sexton didn't get traded because he got hurt, but in the limited 11 games he played before he got that knee injury, it started to work. He adapted and embraced that role. And we got a little glimpse of it, 11 games. Now we need to see it. We need to see him healthy. And now we need to see it for at least, you know, half a season to really determine what's going to go forward in terms of the long term. You know, if the Cavs bring him back, they're not going to, I mean, we could debate and kind of, you know, throw hypotheticals out there, what his contract is going to be. But, you know, I mean, what do we think? 2-year, 3-year deal? Probably. Are they going to give him a 1-year deal, Sam? I mean, it's probably going to be a 2-year, 3-year situation with an option. Regardless, they need to see it play out more going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this. I've never been as impressed with Colin Sexton as I was in those 11 games last year because of what you just said, John. He took a step back in shot attempts for the good of the team. And because the Cavs were saying, look, we have Mobley now. We have Garland ready to break out. We have Jared Allen. We don't need you to score 24 and a half points a game anymore. You know, and he scored 16. And guess what? He did it within the flow of the offense. I have never been so impressed with the guy because it just showed me, you know what? He's not just a guy who's just going out there to get buckets. He wants to win, and he wanted to play, and he plays the right way. He always plays hard. There's never been any doubt about that. But I think that was a great sign. Frankly, it may come to the point where he just takes the qualifying offer, plays for, you know, $8 million or whatever it is this year, and then becomes an unrestricted free agent. But he'll be playing for a contract this year, and you can always work out a contract during the season. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, because frankly, until the Nets figure out what to do with Durant, the entire league's kind of on hold, which is why DeAndre Ayton's not getting any offers as a restricted free agent, why Collins not getting any offers as a restricted free agent, because everybody's kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with Durant before they make their next move.
It's funny you bring that up, Sam, because I just read that today on hoopswire.com. That your very column about the Kevin Durant situation. And also, he may stay in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility as well. I'm sure that you read that on HoopsWire.
I did.
And I think reading that as, I can always count on you. I can count on you more than my own mother, because I will quiz her about it. She won't know the answer. You, however, would know. But anyway.
Absolutely. Always here for you.
But
you guys are so cute.
Aren't we, though? I think Chase is waiting to talk.
No, keep going.
I do think that, that's the philosophy around Las Vegas right now, is that all the GMs and all the executives are there, and the Nets are actively looking for Durant takers, and they want a huge haul in return. And right now that's just not out there. So the possibility exists that, look, Kevin, you're going to be, what is he? He's going to be 34 in September. You've got 4 years left on your contract. Come back, and we're going to make this work. We got Kyrie back. I think that's a possibility that could happen. And then, but what happens with Sexton and Ayton and other guys who are potential, on the trade block, they're not going to be moved until people figure out what's going on with Durant.
Yeah. Well, we know what's going on with the Cavs. We have one of the best young cores in the league, and Bill Simmons of The Ringer doesn't really write a trade value column anymore, but he just released an episode talking about the trade value of players in the league. It's not necessarily ranking the best players, but which players have the most trade value based off of age, skill, upside, ceiling, accolades, and the like. And what the Cavs have 3 players in the top 64 of his list. Starting with the bottom to the top, we have Jarrett Allen, who comes in at number 61, around the same group as Draymond Green previously mentioned, OG Anunoby, DeAndre Ayton, Fred VanVleet, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis. Just recognizing his ability and skill, and it's like seeing that someone else who has been pretty vocal about his disdain for the Cavs, and a pretty respected NBA opinion in the league, say, hey, the third option on the Cavs is a pretty awesome player, as exciting. But here's what really gets fun, because Darius Garland comes in at number 30 above the names such as CP3, Damian Lillard, LeBron James, Donovan Mitchell, and LaMelo Ball. He's at number 30, listed better than all those players. And then the prime jewel of all of this is Evan Mobley comes in at number 9, the 9th highest trade value in the league. Evan Mobley, his group, I'm going to read you what this group is called: Untouchables, as in absolutely never trading. He is in a group with Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, and Ja Morant. There we find our beloved Evan Mobley, above players such as Kevin Durant at 10, Devin Booker at 11, LeBron at 12, Butler at 13, PG-13 at 14, Trae Young at 17. Evan Mobley's above all those. He says he has a higher trade value than all of those players. Number 9. In the top group, we have Giannis 1, Luka 2, Jokic at 3, and Steph Curry at 4. Those are the completely and utterly untouchable. So anyway, you can find all that stuff. The Cavs, and I bring that up to say this: it's so easy for me to get carried away in my love of basketball and excitement about what the Cavs are doing, and just think that we're going to win 70 plus games. Like, it's easy for me to think that, and I get carried away because I'm a fan and I love it. And to see that the excitement I'm feeling and what I'm witnessing is valid, and maybe not obviously 70 wins, but just to see that we're going to be a threat and that we are on the right track, and we do have like players that people are taking notice of around the league. That's super exciting. And if you're Kobe Altman or Mike Gansey or Coach Biggerstaff, you've got to be just super pumped that the dominoes have fallen in this specific way, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, and really, Chase, if you look at, as John said earlier, what we all kind of were thinking about the Cavs at this time last year, like, I think we were all pretty much, at least I know I was, and I think I could speak for you guys. What are they doing? They just drafted another 7-footer. They traded for Markkanen. You know, and the culture going into last summer was not very good because you're coming off a year of Andre Drummond.
Right.
You know, you were coming off a year.
Kevin Porter Jr.
Kevin Porter Jr. We felt like Kobe Altman in the front office had lost touch with the team. And
which
really,
not to pat myself on the back, but that's why I love the Jose Calderon, the Ricky Rubio, and the Mobley draft pick to kind of course like this opposite. Yeah.
Rubio, Nato, Lopez, brilliant signings.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they're all-stars, but because they are veterans who've been there before. And the Cavs saw that if we're going to have a young core, these are the type of guys we need to have around them. So to me, it was just, those were all great signings for that reason. And just like you said, Chase, it really goes to show that the front office, to me, you know, they had to get through kind of that rocky patch of trades that, you know, Drummond and things like that flopped, and Kevin Porter Jr. that kind of that just didn't work out. They took some risks and they didn't work out, and now they're kind of going the safe, obvious route. And I think it's just been brilliant. And it helps that you got, as you said, a guy in Mobley who really, of all those people on those lists, in 7-8 years, there's probably only one guy on that list, one or two guys on that list that you'd rather have than Mobley. I mean, we're talking Steph Curry, who in 7 or 8 years you'd rather have Evan Mobley. You know, so I just think that they really hit a home run with that number 3 pick last year in Mobley, and that's really benefited them. And then you know, just on the court, it's helped them in the front office make decisions, and he's been a godsend for the franchise.
You know, it's funny you bring up Andre Drummond. It's like, oh my gosh, that feels like that was like 5 years ago already.
Yeah,
and it was just a year and a half or something. I mean, it's crazy. And then you mentioned the you know, positions and things that they've done to take risks, the Drummond move and the contract, you know, Kevin Porter Jr. Guys, how soon we forget they hired John Beeline as the head coach a few years ago. And so this front office, this organization has gone through so much change since LeBron left after 2018, trying to find an identity. And it really started, I mean, you could argue that it really started with maybe not necessarily the Sexton draft pick, but the Garland draft pick. And his rookie year wasn't very good. Yeah. And then you add in Allen to the trade with Brooklyn, then you add in Evan Mobley. And I mean, the turnaround was years ahead of schedule, as we talked about throughout the whole season last year. And so the foundation is there. Now you got to build on it. Now you got to add more depth. You know, before we do our season preview show, which we're not doing tonight, but there's a lot of things that we evaluate in terms of this roster, what they're going to do maybe at the deadline. But they need to add more depth in some positions at some point. You know, maybe that happens this year. Maybe it happens next summer. Who knows? But the future is definitely bright. And, you know, there's positions on this team, Garland and especially Mobley, that a lot of teams in the NBA would love to have, and that they're going to be a force for the next decade.
Do you feel like the ceiling, I'm trying to word this so it's not just absurd, because it could be an absurd question. Why do I feel like the team with this iteration is stronger than the team with LeBron? John?
I think it's because I don't think you should say stronger.
Okay. Help me out. Do you know what I'm trying to say, though?
I know what you're trying to say. And I think what you're trying to say is you have more faith in the long-term sustainability with this team than LeBron's second time, because the Cavs were in win now mode with LeBron then, and they emptied their pockets for his buddies and veterans to win now, and it paid off, and not thinking of the future.
Well, even in his first iteration, it was just him. Like he didn't even have Kyrie or Kevin Love.
And the NBA that was so long ago. That was 15 plus years ago that his first, go round really with the Cavs before 2010. So,
but it wasn't like the Spurs who always had a stable of studs.
But the NBA itself, and Sam, you'll say this too, the NBA itself, when LeBron's first year with the Cavs from 2003 to 2010, the 7 years there, is completely different than it is now.
Yeah.
But what I think what you're trying to say is you feel more comfortable with the long-term sustainability with this organization now, as maybe you felt with LeBron during 14 and 18, because we were in the live in the moment now. We need to win now. We're throwing all of our chips at the table. We're now currently in 2022, we're looking, we don't have LeBron, obviously, but we have all these young pieces that this organization has never had. This many young pieces, this good pieces that play really well, all-star caliber or all-stars in general. Then you go back, and I hate to always bring this up, but you go back to those 80s Cavaliers teams with Price, Doherty, and Nance, where you had young pieces like that you could see long-term how they would develop. And those guys did, but that's the first time that we've ever had more than just one guy named LeBron James on this team that has sustainable power going forward long-term. I think that's what you're trying to say, Chase.
And that, folks, is why John Sable is a sports at Fox 8. Because that was exactly it, Sam. Am I the only one that feels that way?
Well, no, I mean, I think, look, when you have LeBron James on the team, it's championship or bust, right? Yeah. That's it. You don't win a championship, you may as well finish last when LeBron James is on the team.
The Ricky Bobby syndrome. It's just the Ricky Bobby conundrum right there.
Yeah, if you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah. Right. It really is. And
is LeBron James Ricky Bobby? I've never seen him in the same place, I'm going to say. I don't know.
Well, now you look at the team that just won the title, right? How were they built? They weren't built with a LeBron James. They weren't built with a huge splashy pick. Steph Curry, pick number 7. Klay Thompson, 11. Draymond Green, pick number 35.
Well, and Sam, to be honest, the Celtics were built through the draft as well aside from some acquisitions.
Milwaukee Bucks.
Yep.
Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 15. The year before that, it was the Toronto Raptors.
Middleton.
Kawhi Leonard, pick number 15. Yeah. So, this is kind of the way the NBA is going. The super team, look at what's happened to them. Kevin Durant, once traded. Kyrie Irving, bunch of drama. The Lakers of Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook can't even make the play-in tournament. Okay?
Well, they won a championship in the bubble, so.
But before they got Westbrook.
Oh, yeah.
Now they can't even make the play-in tournament. That's not to say that, that the super team is dead, but the NBA is going in a different direction. Teams are being built differently now because teams such as the Milwaukee Bucks who win a championship, or the Phoenix Suns who get to the finals, or the Toronto Raptors or the Golden State Warriors, they're all doing it without the super duper star in a very low drama, low key type of way of going about building your team. And guess what? That's how the Cavaliers are building their team. The only difference with them is right now they're super young and they're going to have to go through some playoff growing pains to get to where they want to go.
Yeah. That's how we built this team here on Cavs on the Break. We just slowly built this thing up.
Big 3.
Just slowly built this thing up until we got everyone on earth listening to this pod. Let me tell you.
Of our group, Jeremy is definitely Draymond Green.
Jeremy was texting me. He felt like he doesn't contribute to anything. I'm like, Jeremy, you always contribute, man. We could have had a strong starting 5 tonight. But I guess it was a load management thing for Jeremy. Which I totally get.
Load management meaning family and work, I'm sure.
Yeah. No,
which is totally understandable.
Yeah, we love Jeremy. Jeremy's the man. But yeah, I could talk basketball all day with you guys. Unfortunately, that is all that we have time for right now. That does it for Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cavs on the Break. We always follow back every single time. Give us a follow. We will follow back. Make sure to follow Sam on Twitter at Amico Hoops. Catch all of his work and writings at hoopswire.com. And you can catch John Sable on Twitter at
Chase
_ John Sable 8.
Sam, Chase lost a cue card.
Oh no.
Oh man, that's
I accidentally
bad TV
deleted
right
that
there.
in my notes, and I am so sorry.
It's at John _ Sable.
I knew it was something like that. I am so sorry. I just catch you on TV because it's just like that's Fox 8 right there. Taylor Vanderbilt, catch him on Twitter too at the Team Vandy. See, I have his here. John, I'm so sorry about that. Let's give out the Junkyard Dog Award. Who wins that for this episode?
I vote you, Chase.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna vote Taylor, man.
You hustled. Well, no, Taylor's the star. Remember, the Junkyard Dog goes to the guy who's, hustling.
Hey, Taylor's out in Vegas, man, and he's giving us knowledge of Summer League as we speak. So yeah, he gets the Junkyard Dog Award for sure.
He gets my vote.
We'll give it to you.
All right.
I give Taylor MVP, but go ahead. You guys do what you got to do.
My vote is Taylor, and then the cop scanner that kept taking your voice out. That's what I vote.
I had some good zingers in there too.
Yep. John, any final thoughts? And we'll throw to Sam, and then we'll throw to Mike Breen.
Yeah, I think I think the draft went well with everything. I think the next episode we do, guys, we'll kind of reevaluate and talk about this. Whatever happens with Sexton, beyond him, I don't see this roster changing at all before training camp begins, heading into into September and into October, and then before you know it, guys, we'll be talking our season preview and see what we can do. I know they'll have media day at the end of September, which I know all three of you guys will probably, all three of us may try to be there. I know I'll be there. Sam, I hope you're there. Chase, I hope you're there.
I'm gonna try to get there this year, man. I'm gonna try.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, as we go into the summer and get into the season, I think we just got to get keep open-mindedness to this team. There's going to be some, I think, more overachievement, but also some growing pains at times. But I think definitely there's going to be some jumps that they are going to make this upcoming year.
Yeah. Sam, final thoughts.
Yeah, for the two final thoughts. Number one, the only thing I don't like about summer is I only get to do a pod with you like once or twice in a 3 or 4 month period. Number two, I feel within the next 4 weeks we will have a Colin Sexton emergency pod, whether he re-signs, which I predict he will be back with the Cavaliers next year. But eventually, shortly here, there will be a move made involving Sexton. So we have that to look forward to.
And that will be one of the first puzzle pieces of LeBron returning, right? With whatever happens with Sexton. Is that too early? Let the record show. I talked about this at the All-Star show, and you guys thought I was crazy.
Well, we always think you're crazy, but in a good way. But yeah, I just think that I think that that's another podcast altogether.
Boy. All right. Well, you guys are the best. You guys are so kind. You're awesome. And it's a great show. So Mike Breen, take us out.
Congratulations, Cleveland. Your decades-long wait is finally over. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.